Is this fascism? What is it? How do you see this from based on your work here?
I mean, I think it's certainly an attempt to move towards an authoritarian system. They want to centralize power with a single figure. They want to neutralize these sources of dissent and opposition. They want to neutralize Congress. I think they're clearly taking inspiration from people like Orban. It's been fascinating, I think, over the last few years to see the way conservative figures have embraced him, hosted him, talked about him a lot, and held up Hungary as a model for the U.S., which is a strange situation. Um, you know, I don't know. I would say I think Trump's impulses certainly run much more towards the F word. I think the folks here are not necessarily not ideological in that sense. They're very concerned with religion. I think they're more theocrats than anything else. But they're also they're very technical about it. So rather than being driven by any particular label, they're just looking for ways to grab the power they can and to exercise it and to bring about the society they want. Well, I'd say first the DOJ stuff is a very explicit goal here. They look at DOJ and they say it doesn't make any sense to have a department that has a head appointed by the president who serves at the pleasure of the president, and then the president can't tell them what to do. Of course he can, and so we've seen Trump doing that in directing investigations of political enemies, firing line prosecutors, blowing through every guardrail at DOJ and treating it really as his personal law firm, and then I think is the arm of a lot of his retribution. The judiciary is a somewhat more complicated case where there is in Project 2020. I think Project 2025 doesn't think very completely about the judiciary. There's this almost religious faith that the Supreme Court will be on their side. So they look at things like for example, see the Impoundment Control Act, which they want to use to seize the power of
So
the purse.
explain that to people what that is.
Yeah. So the Impoundment Control Act is a 1974 law, which presidents for a long time would impound funds. So basically, refuse to spend funds that Congress had appropriated. And Congress finally had enough of this with Nixon and passed a law saying funds could only be impounded with a specific request under specific circumstances. Russ Vogt believes that the Impoundment Control Act is unconstitutional. And if they can just get the right test case to the Supreme Court will agree and rule it unconstitutional. They also believe that the independent regulatory agencies are unconstitutional. The Supreme Court said in 1935 that they were not, but they think they can get the Supreme Court to reconsider that. And in fact, the Supreme Court issued a preliminary opinion just a few days ago that seemed to validate that. So they may be right.